Today I'm going to be chatting to Debbie Armour. Debbie is the driving force behind the band Burd Ellen, which takes a unique and contemporary approach to traditional music. I had a great time chatting to Debbie, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I did. Welcome, Debbie.
Hi. Thanks for
how are you
having
doing?
me. This is nice.
Yeah, we've not talked before, but I heard you on the Old Songs podcast.
Oh, yeah, that was a blast. I loved that.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I think we've been following each other on Twitter for a
Mm-hmm.
while and all that before.
Yeah.
So sort of know of you. So tell me, first of all, how would you describe what you do? Because from my point of view, it's very kind of unique. And to me, there seems to be a lot of influence from sort of drone and experimental music, almost electronica. But you don't really use so much electronica, I guess. It's more like instruments creating drones and all of that. So, but it's very folk. It's very traditional as well.
Well, I say usually when people ask me what I do, I lie and I say that I work in an office. No, I don't. I usually say that I work primarily with traditional song, usually from the UK and surrounds, but sometimes from further afield. And my background is in Gaelic singing, unaccompanied Gaelic singing, really, from childhood. But yeah, what we do with Burd Ellen is that we take, I guess, a kind of exploratory approach rather than experimental. I think I think it's very, very difficult to be genuinely experimental in 2020, so I tend not to use that word. Plus, it puts you in with a whole bunch of synth lords. I'm not into that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not my vibe.
Yeah, there's like this edgy white guys.
I do love a
with
synth
synths
though.
and pedals.
Don't get me wrong. I do love a synth. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, we take an exploratory approach to traditional song, and also I think the work, especially with Burd Ellen, the work has two quite distinct strands. So I would be perfectly happy to do a real kind of folk club circuit and perform unaccompanied and with super minimal accompaniment. You know, I've got my shruti box, I've got my harmonium, and I play the guitar really badly. Well, I'm learning. I'm on an arc with that. But yeah, I'd be quite happy to do that. That would give me loads of joy and just do a really straight kind of traditional thing. But when Gail and I, my bandmate Gail Brogan, when we work together, we have a more kind of expansive, textural kind of soundscape for the songs to sit in. But ultimately, it's still very, very song driven, very song oriented.
Yeah. I was going to ask about the way that you do that, because it's very kind of, I guess, minimalist is probably another term that gets thrown about too much.
Sure.
But, it's in that sense, they're kind of bare, stripped down songs. But one of the things that I think is extraordinary, I've never heard on any other kind of, I guess, traditional folk singing, is the way that you weave the harmonies together, because they're not kind of traditional tight harmony or whatever that you might hear on in folk records. How does that process kind of come about? How do you create such a unique sound?
Well, I work with people that aren't traditional musicians, I think, is the thing. Not that I don't also love to work with traditional musicians, but Gail doesn't have a traditional background at all. She's a big folky fan, but doesn't really kind of engage with the material in her own solo work. And she writes all of her own stuff. Is very her writing's very rooted in the landscape and takes a lot of thematic influence from folk and trad, but she doesn't really use the material, so that automatically brings a different angle to it. And when we made the first record, we had a third person, Lucy Duncan, who worked with us extensively during that time right at the beginning. Lucy's a piano player, and her background is very much sort of jazz and Sondheim and kind of cabaret and yeah, just like a totally different world, which makes for super interesting approaches. I think if it's something that's not that you don't feel like you've heard 1,000 times before, if you're coming to it really fresh, with a
Yeah.
different sensibility, and I think also when I mean that making that record was quite a departure for me because I didn't write all the harmonies,
Hmm.
which I like to do generally. That's definitely my like preferred mo. And I listen to a lot of religious polyphony and Bulgarian music in particular. I really like Eastern European
Hmm.
music, Georgian, stuff like that, and really interesting, really kind of challenging, crunchy harmony stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, I think a combination of all of those things, and not yeah, me not taking a traditional route into folk music. I think definitely all of
Uh-huh.
those things contribute to just making a bit of a weird a weird sound.
Yeah, but it's a good sound. You say you weren't really like you didn't have a traditional route in, but you grew up singing
Mm.
Gaelic
I did,
songs.
but I certainly wasn't raised in the tradition. I feel like
Hmm. Hmm.
I sang at school. No one in my immediate family is a musician. It's just me. So I sang at school, and I competed in the mod,
Uh-huh.
which I don't. Maybe some people don't know what the mod is, but it's like an annual gathering of Gaelic musicians and drama people and stuff, and there's like a whole series of competition over a week in a particular location in Scotland. So there's like hundreds and hundreds of competition and thousands of competitors. Um, and I competed there from when I was 10 until I was about 15, I think. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, and then I kind of I stopped making work altogether. I had children instead, which fair ruins your day. Takes up a lot of time. Yeah, so I had my first baby when I was 18 and my last one when I was 29, and didn't really make a right lot of work in between times.
Hmm.
So yeah, when I started making work again, when I started feeling like I wanted to make work again, like traditional music seemed to be like a nice kind of welcoming, familiar space for me, like where I felt confident and stuff because I don't write.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So had you picked up the influences from I don't know electronic music or that kind of stuff, and put that when you came back to folk music, you approached that in that way, or was it something that just
I think it
felt
happened.
natural to do it like that?
I think it's quite organic. I do love a drone, and I
Yeah.
really like to sing against it. It's
Hmm.
a really quite physically peculiarly satisfying thing. And I I guess I guess it features a lot actually in Eastern European music. That really
Yes.
heavy, deep, resonant, sustained drone. And yeah, I really enjoy that sound. I really enjoy the all of the ways that you can create different chords and modes from that space. So you can be quite free if that's your only accompaniment. And I think also I can't really play anything. I'm a bit of a shit musician. Like I'm not, I can play the guitar a bit, and that's because I've spent the last 2 years working really, really hard, and
Mm.
I'm not that good at it. Um, so like having a drone is a really nice way to accompany yourself.
Yeah.
And in terms of what
Yeah.
I listen to, I think I don't know, like I listen to like music that women that are nearly 40 like that like music. I'm like a total, like, you could have drawn me in a weird book of weirdo music women. Like, I like Bjork, and I like the Cocteau Twins, and I like Kate Bush, and I like PJ Harvey, and I like weird stuff too. I don't know. I like, I'm super into Sarah Davachi. At the moment, she's an American composer, minimalist composer. And what else? Andy Brown. She's this amazing woman who has built a sort of electronic glass harp. It's the most amazing.
Wow.
I urge everyone to go and investigate her oeuvre. She's a really, really interesting musician. Yeah, so like there's a lot of quite weird, very, very minimal stuff, but also, I love Beyonce as well.
Yeah.
Who doesn't,
I think
right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the same. I mean, you kind of listed a lot of my favorite artists, as well as as well as some of the ones that I haven't heard of. But and I think that always informs what you do as an artist to some extent, even if it doesn't ever. I'm never going to sound like Beyonce, but I still listen. I still like it. So
yeah, it's good.
But and it was so. Is it your latest album? It's called Silver Came. Was that the most recent one?
Latest and indeed only. Yeah. We've only made one full-length album, and it's low-key a cheek calling it full-length. It's LP length, right? It's like 36 minutes or something, I think.
Yeah, I'm honestly though, I'm a great believer in albums being under 40 minutes long, if you can do that.
For sure.
Just because I have absolutely zero attention span, even with my own songs. So I like to try to make it short. But with that album, you bookended it with Gaelic songs. And then you approached some, I would say, pretty extraordinary ballads, and your renderings of Sweet Lemony and especially Fair Annie of Lochroyan are just extraordinary. I'd never quite. I hadn't heard them until the Old Songs podcast. I don't know why, but I hadn't, and that particularly that Fair Annie just blew me away.
It's
and
really
I think
great.
you recorded that in one take.
Yeah.
And was it something about being in that somehow like an emotional space that just allowed you to bring that to it?
I think it's disingenuous to say that you just kind of, it's just like a big outpouring of emotion. It's a 10-minute long ballad. Do you know what I mean? It's rehearsed.
Yeah.
It's rehearsed. I remember it. I know it. You have to do it 100 times before you even are in the text. But I think like when I'm recording, I don't like to do anything more than twice ever, really. Yeah, like
that would be wonderful.
I think it does. I think it loses something really fundamental. Like you do it once, and if you really hate it, do it again. And then if you don't hate that, then do one for safety. Like, and that's it. Like I won't do it any more times than that. I know it. It's never going to be exactly the way that I want it to be in my head. So if I don't like release it, I would do it 1,000 times and maybe there all day. But I think it really loses something, especially in a big long song, and especially in something that's so emotional. And you need to go deep. Yeah. I think you need to go deep to make it believable and to make it relevant. And I couldn't. We didn't just record Annie in one take. We recorded Lemony and Annie together continuously in one take.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So it's like a 15-minute operation of recording the three of us live in a barrel-ceilinged dance studio. In a studio built out of crash mats, like, because we were too cheap to pay for a real studio. I kind of liked it. It was nice. By the end of it, it was quite cozy. But yeah, like it's a bit of a faff to do that again. honestly.
Yeah.
And it will definitely lose something, like you become self-conscious, and I think the immediacy of performance rather than recording is sometimes the best thing.
Yeah, yeah. And you seem to have themed it in a sense that the stories are focused on women, and I think I think I'm right in saying that you altered a few of the lyrics, or you chose the verses of Annie in a way that would highlight her story. More than, let's say, some of the other versions.
Yeah, I did. Like, I picked from the text. I don't change words. I don't think it's necessary. I think there's a robust debate to be had around whether you want to leave things intact and deal with difficult issues that way, using the text that you have, or whether it's better to reword and rework and reapproach and reassess for what's appropriate for a contemporary audience. I don't know. I feel like, for me personally, if people are uncomfortable with what you're singing, then they should probably ask themselves why they're uncomfortable about it. And I think that's a really good jumping off point for conversation. And if they're uncomfortable, it means that it's still pertinent. I think there's a couple of things that can definitely just, like, die, and nobody needs to sing them anymore, and that'll be fine. Right?
Sure.
That'll be all right. But, if you're teaching a bunch of, like, 15-year-olds about traditional song, and you do something like what's that bloody awful one where there's the woman and she's in the field with her sheep, and some man comes along and is like, oh, I would like you to, and he essentially, like, assaults her in the field and then goes away and then comes back, and it turns out he's a lord. So everyone's like, oh, well, if you're a lord, that's fine then. Let's get married. Like, I mean, that's horseshit. Like, I can't. But
there's a few that kind of take that theme. The one that springs to mind. It's probably not, but Fair Nightingale springs to mind.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And, like, you can either perform that as it is without an iota of self-awareness, which people do all the time, and you can not perform it. You can just be like, oh God, that's a bit much, and I just don't want to sing it. And that's cool. If you don't want to have it in your rep, don't have it in your rep. Or you can perform it and be like, this is really gross, isn't it? Like, without obviously wearing a t-shirt that says this is really gross. Like, there's ways to approach things that that allow you to open up the conversation without being militant about it.
Yeah.
Which is more
Is that
more
something
useful.
that you find? Yeah. Is that something that you kind of do naturally with your audiences, or is that why you choose some of the songs?
Do you mean my legendary between song banter? No. Well, I do chat a lot of shit between songs on stage, for sure. I mean, it's really heavy. Like, I don't think I've ever done a show where someone, usually women, don't come up to me afterwards and say that they've cried during it. Like, it's big stuff, and, like, that's really touching for me as a performer. Like, that's a really beautiful piece of feedback to have, and it also just reinforces for me every time how necessary it is to keep talking about these things. Right. Like, it's still important, and it's still relevant, and there's still relevance to be had within the canon of traditional song, and there's still an emotional space for it to sit in, which, if you sing traditional songs all the time, then you know that, right? But if you're coming to us as an audience member because you really liked Gail's band in the 90s, right, which loads and loads of people do, like, Gail's a total legend, but we get a lot of people at our gigs who don't know anything about traditional music. So to be like, hey, look, there's all this stuff here, check it out. And it is really heavy, and it can be really difficult. But, it's really beautiful, and there's a lot to be
Yeah.
there's a lot to be gained from exploring it and looking at it, and like not picking the scab, but like just feeling out the edges of
Poking
it.
around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
obviously between songs, I have to make loads of shitty dad jokes so that everyone doesn't just sit there like this the whole time, you know.
Yeah. It's an interesting approach, actually. One of the things I was thinking about this the other day, and my sort of impression of that kind of intensity has always been like, well, I need to write songs that are really intense, and then some of these other things, I can sing, Michael and his man to an audience just for a laugh, but actually, there's a real sense, and you've described it perfectly, as a real way in which you can use the traditional songs to raise a question, or to raise an issue and a topic, without it being something that's so personal and so kind of confessional almost from the singer, that everyone else is like, oh, well, that's their experience, we don't need to really engage so much with it. But you can engage with it through a different lens, which kind of, I think, gives you that leeway to have those discussions. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what folk is, isn't it? It should be conveying a universality of experience. Otherwise, it wouldn't persist.
Yeah.
If people didn't have an emotional connection with it in some way over the last, like, I sing songs that are like 400 years old and more. If people didn't have some sort of emotional resonance with those pieces of music, then they wouldn't still be available for me to sing. So it makes sense that there's something in it. And that blankness, I think you're right, that kind of avatar-y, kind of archetypal sort of access that people are able to have to it thematically, it makes it easier to get emotional, I think. I think you're right.
Yeah. Do you ever find that the language becomes a barrier when you're singing in Gaelic? I mean, I guess nobody knows you're singing about sheep unless they know the song, right? But how do you?
And that is the key. That's the trick. It's always about sheep, in one way or another.
Yeah. But do you find it's like? Because you're talking about like the songs in a sense that you then have a discussion with the audience, or at least you're sharing with the audience some of the thoughts about the songs. But actually, some of the emotion, I think, it just comes from them just being really beautiful melodies, or the way that you're presenting them.
Yeah, melody is like 100% my first route in. Always. If I don't like the shape of the tune, I find it really difficult to engage with the text. The text, although it is really important and it's really, really interesting, there's always something interesting to dig around and find out about. I think that melody is the core driver for me, always. It's always like the musicality of it. I end up changing them all the time. I'm always amazed when I go back and listen to the things that I've learned things from, and I think I've been really faithful and I haven't. It surprises me how much I deviate, actually. But yeah, like the text is secondary, always. And I kind of, I maybe that's because I sing in languages other than English quite a lot. And I don't feel the same attachment to, like I find it really difficult to learn from books and stuff. I'm very much an oral learner. But yeah, like it always amazes me the way that things hang together. Like didn't theme the album intentionally. I just, when we got to the end of it, I was like, oh look, all these things are about this thing. Yeah, but it's musically is the root of like the drive behind it, and I think that if you make that choice, and especially if you make the choice to sing in other languages, then it's your job as a musician rather than a textual analyst. Like, analyst, to make the music say the things that you want it to say. And then that means if you're doing a 5.5 minute ballad in broad Scots, it doesn't really matter. It shouldn't really matter. Sometimes I explain about it at the beginning, and sometimes I explain about it at the end, because I don't want to be like gatekeepy. You know, I don't want to be like, oh, well, if you don't know what it's about, then tough shit. Like, like you can just guess, Google it. You know, like I don't want to be that guy. But your job is to bring people with you.
Yeah.
As a musician.
Yeah. I think Iona, when I was talking to her, Iona 5, she mentioned it, you know, that when she's in Italy, she's not speaking in broad Scots, because even though she's singing in Scots, she wants to break that barrier that the audience might feel with the language first, and make sure that they come along. And then, as you say, the language doesn't really matter. I mean, one of my favorite artists at the moment I listen to a lot is a guy called Algis Fedijevas, and he's Lithuanian. All his lyrics are in Lithuanian. I have no idea what they're about, but I've met him and he's a beautiful guy. And so the language isn't a barrier in that sense, and you just get this feeling that you'd probably really like the person singing them.
Yeah. So, we have so many tools at our disposal to do that, and I think like it goes back to the way that I learned how to sing songs that I didn't understand when I was a little girl. You know, I don't speak Gaelic. I'll always be a learner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I'm not fluent. Okay. Not at all. Okay. Nobody in my house speaks Gaelic either. It's not in my family. We don't have it. We don't have it at home. So I was always having to learn the shapes, like the vocal shapes, and the melody sits in a way that helps you to articulate the vowel length and stuff, which is super important in Gaelic music and Gaelic speech as well. But, you know, it's as basic as this verse is a happy verse, so when we sing this verse, you should smile and get louder. Right? And if you don't, you'll be marked down for it, because it'll seem like you don't understand the text. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't understand the text? Like, I really don't understand the text? Yeah. And I think also, as a general rule of thumb, things that have got a bonny tune or like a really moving tune are usually about something really moving, you know?
Yeah.
And it's quite easy to like just like step right into it and let the naturally occurring emotions of the music just drive it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how many song tunes or melodies kind of get transferred to other ones, and I guess that is because of that thing. It's like, you know what, there's not that much here in this text, but if I put this melody with it, it might be amazing, and that's how probably
for sure
it ended up that way.
What's that? I really like it. The Sheerans Know For You. Do you know that? It's the tune is like, the tune is called something else. I don't know what the name of the tune is, but it's the song is The Sheerans Know For You, because your back is what is it? She's pregnant, basically. She's pregnant out of wedlock, and she can't shear the sheep anymore or cut the corn anymore, whatever she's shearing, because her belly is too big and her back is too big, and she has to take the ribbons out of her hair. You know, like, you're screwed, right? It's over for you, and it's a really, really basic song. Oh, your back at Winnaboo, that's right, you can't bend your back because your belly's row and full. Your tum's all full. And the tune is something else. The tune is like a standard. It's like something about Kelvin Hall, I'm sure. Anyway, it's a beautiful tune, and it takes but the song that it's from isn't particularly sad. But like, if you in combination with a really, really basic lyric, it's really repetitive and just like a little 4-line stanza, it's heartbreaking. It's genuinely heartbreaking. Every time, you should look it up. the Sheerans know for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely.
Okay.
It's really, really simple. And it's really like, yeah. Yeah, it's good.
So are you going to record it, or you have
I
recorded
don't know. It's a bit. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do it for Patreon. Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for things I could do
Trying to find
for patrons. Yeah.
How does that work out for you? I mean, a lot of people have turned to Patreon, and how's it working for you? Because you have to provide a lot of content. Basically, that's the the bottom line.
A lot of people are turning to Patreon, which is really helping me. We've had one on the go since March, and it's not so much of a thing in the UK as it is in the States.
Right.
And I think that although it was sort of originally set up to support musicians, what's ended up happening is that it's like a big thing for podcasters. Loads of podcasters have Patreons with bonus content, and also like comic book writers and artists, visual artists who can produce things like to order and stuff. And so it's become a bit of a different beast. But the more people that do it in the UK, the better it's going to be for all the people who do it in the UK, is what I think. Like, especially in the folky world, we're a little bit resistant. We're a little bit resistant. Oh, that seems a bit new. Maybe if my folk club on a Thursday night had a Patreon, I would do that. But like the way that we consume and engage with things it can be a little bit rigid as a community. Yeah. Which is, no bad thing. We're traditionalists, right? Like, somebody needs to be, otherwise it would all be gone and we wouldn't have it. So it's a great way to be, but it's not necessarily the most adaptive for a rapidly changing industry environment. But it's good. I like it. It's fair, focuses the mind about your output, and it's encouraging me to learn lots of new songs, or to engage with lots more songs than I normally do, like engage with them a little bit deeper and make work. And I like singing and I like making work and I like learning it, and as a professional musician you have surprisingly little time for that. Yeah, because there's all of the other business of being a professional musician to contend with, So it's nice to be able to make music and to say, well, I have to, because the Patreon demands it.
Patreons demand it. Yeah.
But it's good. We have a Ballad of the Month club. So for one of our tiers, every month I do like a little 10-minute video about a ballad. And at the start of the month, and then at the end of the month, we all get together in our little Facebook group and have a chat about it, which is really cool. That's been really fun. And when I'm thinking about things to talk about, basically what I'm doing is I'm talking about song, but I'm also like trying to talk about at least one aspect of repertoire building. Like, so this is the song and this is what it's about. So how do you do it and how do you approach it? Or why would you do it? Or why would you want to have this in your rep? Or what happens if you've got 25 different texts? Like, which one is the right one? And, like all those sorts of questions. So it's been really good. It's a good way to examine your practice as a traditional singer. Yeah.
So do you find that that's kind of something you found, like, it's kind of like, I guess that becomes like a teaching thing, really. It's just like you're trying to, not only are you performing and bringing it, but you're also bringing the tradition to new people, to new audiences, presumably, by educating them about these things.
Yeah, I try to not think about it like teaching. I feel like there's people that are much better placed to teach than me, I think it's more about sharing all of the ways in which I have made mistakes. Or being like, oh, I didn't know about this. Did you know about this? This is really cool. Or, oh, I didn't know about that. And what's amazing is that even though I'm choosing the material and bringing it to them, every single month I find a new thing that I didn't know about. So it's an exchange, like it's definitely not me going, this is how you learn a ballad. It's like that doesn't exist. There's no like way to do it, or like, this is how you preserve your personal politics in the context of this ballad. Like, not everybody's interested in doing that. you know. So
Right.
it's a nice like exchange, and a group of cool like-minded people. But you also
Yeah.
totally don't have to engage with it like that. You can just chuck me a fiver every month and I'll send you a couple of tunes at its
Right.
most basic level. Yeah.
So you said you've got a new album coming out, and you might be sharing some of that with Patreon.
Yeah, they get to know about it first.
Yeah.
So
I just saw some clips or some pictures on Twitter, and I think we had a conversation about microphones because
yeah,
microphones are a thing for every person who wants to sing, right? It's like
yeah. In all honesty, my dream life would be to never have to use another microphone again. Like if I could do like all of my gigs totally by myself, barefoot in a room that's nice to sing in, that's the dream. That's the dream. The more tech you have, the more challenging it becomes. Especially when you're like in that kind of like mid-tier microphone space. I don't think there's very much difference between like £150 and £800 or £900. I think you have the one that you like, right? Basically, once you get north of that, then you're into like really sexy territory. But for most of us, just pottering along, especially at home, I think having the one that you like is the best, and the one that's the easiest to sing into. But if you're going to go and make a nice studio record, then why not have the nicest hand-built microphones that you possibly can? It really does. It really makes a difference. It makes a difference in the way that you are able to control your instrument. You know, it's like if you're a guitarist and you buy, you know, if you replace the Fender standard pickups in your Jazzmaster with some like really cool Japanese ones that enhance the vibrations of the air or whatever, I don't know, make the dinner for you as well when you're finished practicing, like whatever it is that they do. Your voice is an instrument in exactly the same way, and there are pieces of equipment that will be right for the sound that you want, and it makes total sense. I think if you're a professional singer, everybody's a little bit of a mic nerd, but I quite am sort of into maybe like doing some crazy stuff. We're already doing some like a bit more processing of the vocal than I would normally, like running it back through cassette tape and recording things from the corner of the room on like vintage German dynamic mics and stuff, and like it's good fun.
So is that kind of part of that approach back to the kind of the more sort of dronescape, soundscape approach of just add a bunch of grime to it, basically? Is that to try to do that?
A little bit. I think it's nice to have fun. You know, it's not a fun process making a record. It's, especially for me, I find it excruciating. Actually, I'm such a perfectionist, and I don't. You know, I like performing. I don't love it, but it's done. And the thing that I like about it is that it's done and it's over, and I never have to think about it again. Whereas if I'm making a record, I have to go through every like tiny little imperfection over and over and over again, and like let it slide over and over and over again, because I don't want to sound like a robot. I don't want to sound like a robot, but what I would like to sound like is that I made my record on 4AD circa 1987. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, that's the vibe.
Yeah. You're standing in the studio next to the Cocteau Twins. And
like Liz. Love her. She's my best. She's my best. And Sam Lee's co-opted her into the folk world as well. Hooray! She was on Sam Lee's last record. So I was like, oh my god. Okay. Maybe she's gonna like become a folkie. Wouldn't that be amazing?
That'd be amazing. Yeah.
She sang. I went to see Massive Attack last year on that big arena tour that they did, specifically because they announced that she was going to also sing, and she did.
So she sang Protection?
No, she sang Teardrop.
Teardrop, yeah. Protection was someone else.
Yeah. That was Tracy Thorn. Tracy Thorn did Protection.
Tracy Thorn, exactly.
Also a great singer. Oh my god, so fantastic. She did Teardrop, and then she just like went right to the very, very back of the stage and hid in the DJ booth and sang Where Have All the Flowers Gone? Over the top of some really brutal Adam Curtis directed montage footage of like poppy fields in Afghanistan and stuff, and I was like, oh. It was transcendental.
Yeah.
So maybe she's been a closet folky all along.
Well, I think she has. I mean, if you think about like "Song to the Siren" that they recorded for that.
Oh yeah. This Mortal Coil.
What was it called? This Mortal Coil.
Yeah.
That was just a absolutely stunning version of the Tim Buckley tune. Which obviously Tim Buckley was a big folkie. So,
Indeed he was. Indeed he was. God, maybe she is.
So, maybe she is. Wouldn't that be amazing?
My dream advances. Oh my God, it was so great. Anyway. Yeah, I think it's nice to have sexy mics, and it's nice to be in the studio, and it's nice to play with things and have fun, but ultimately you just want it to be a clean, clear performance. There's less there's less / no ballads on the new record though. I've just realised it's a collection of winter song. So yeah, no ballads, lots of Jesus and trees and darkness. Christmas.
Christmas. The dreaded Christmas record, is it?
Well, a bit. It is a bit the dreaded Christmas record, but it's my favourite. It's my favourite rep. It's my favourite like little bubble of weirdness. I mean, it's really crazy. There's some really odd medieval carols that still exist, and people sing them away, and you're like, wait, what? What are you talking about? What did he do? Who's mum? Like, it's great. I love it, and the tunes are so bonny, and everybody likes to sing at Christmas as well. Everybody really indulges in a lot of music when they don't normally at Christmas time. Yeah. Maybe you'll go to a church and you'll hear people singing unaccompanied live in harmony in church for the only time that you engage with that kind of thing in the year. Yeah, so winter songs, but that's all I'm telling you. Announcements to come. It's a bit of a dream team as well. Yeah, I'm excited.
So I'm guessing if you want more details, because you're being a bit cagey, I'm guessing if you want the details, go and join your Patreon, right?
Why don't you sign up to my Patreon? Everyone will get to know eventually, obviously, but I need to tell my lovely patrons first. They get to know first about all the details. But what I will say is that this is not the way that I thought this record was going to go. And it took me quite a long time to get over that. Like, I had quite a clear, had a vision board for how it was all going to be. And then obviously there was like this whole global pandemic, and I don't know if you heard about that on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah, never.
Mainstream media hasn't really touched it.
No. Mainstream media just avoids it.
MSM, wake up, sheeple. So I wanted to make this, in studio, like in an actual studio, not one that I have built out of gymnastic mats that doesn't have a radiator in it, right? Like in an actual studio. And I had time all booked, and I had like a great engineer, and I had like not a band, but like a whole bunch of people who were going to come and do stuff. And I had all the songs, and it was going to be really great, and it was going to be quite kind of free and like all this stuff. And then it didn't happen like that. And I was staring down the barrel of having to record it at home and record all my bits at home and like have everyone send all their bits in, which is, ultimately how it's happened. But the process of recording all my stuff at home just made me want to cry every single day. I just was like, I can't. It took me a long time to adjust to the way that it needed to be rather than the way that I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
But I just got the first finished track from Gail last night, and it sounds absolutely banging. Hope you like
Super.
Christmas being slightly terrified. I hope that's your Christmas vibe. Doom.
Doom of Christmas.
Doom and tinsel. Yeah.
That's one of the great things about the folk tradition is like you can find plenty of material where basically everything is horrible and everyone's up dead and everyone gets stabbed or killed with a sword or thrown in a ditch, and the maiden's weeping because the brothers killed their guy or whatever. So there's plenty of that kind of stuff going on.
It's good, isn't it? One of my favorite.
So I'm hoping you found some very deep and dark Christmas doom to get into.
There is literal child murder twice. You'll be pleased to hear. 2 references to literal child murder. So festive as fuck. Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I can hear it in the malls already, right next to George Michael.
It's
coming
Christmas.
Up straight away.
Make sure you don't murder any of your children or anyone else's. Yeah, it's good. My favorite, one of my favorite winter songs, I guess, it's like set at Hogmanay or like New Year. It's called The Minister's Weather. Don't know if you've heard of it. I think it predominantly survived in Scotland in the travelling community. And it's about this wee boy whose dad steals one of the minister's sheep. And the minister knows that it's him, but he can't prove it. And it's Hogmanay, and they're eating the sheep for their New Year's dinner, right? And the dad sends the wee boy out to get firewood, and he goes out to the forest and he's skipping along and he's singing a wee song, basically like, my dad stole the minister's sheep and he can't prove it, right? Like, and then turns out the minister's lurking about the woods and he hears him, and then he catches the minister with his mum.
Okay.
So the minister's like, I want you to come to my church and tell the parish of the church what you've just told me, that your father stole my sheep. But in between then and his visit to the church, he catches the minister with his mother. So the wee boy, but the minister doesn't know. So the wee boy turns up to the church and says, please can I have my shiny penny and my new suit jacket for telling the truth? And the minister says, well, this boy's about to tell you the truth, so you should believe everything he says. And then he tells everyone about the minister and his mum. Doof, 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 doof. Do you know what I mean? So good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good.
So is it like,
Christmas in
I
Scotland.
saw Mummy kissing Reverend Green underneath the mistletoe last night?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's absolutely like that. It's so good. And the minister's mortified. It's a good song.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Festive Scotland, winter times.
Festive. Perfect. Well, I very much look forward to that, and sounds. And in the meantime, there is stuff available on your Bandcamp, I think.
On the old Bandcamp, bloody Bandcamp Friday. I can't. I'm like, please. Yeah. It's so great conceptually, but the reality is that every Bandcamp Friday that comes around, I want to cry because I haven't made anything new to put on Bandcamp because I'm trying to make a record.
I know exactly.
I'm just like,
I know what you mean, and then I go and buy. For me, at least, I go and buy as much as I can possibly afford at that moment, and then I spend a month thinking, trying to flick through all of this stuff, thinking, what am I going to listen to first? Because I'm just overwhelmed with the amount of content. But it's
incredible.
Great. I definitely support what they're doing, and I think it's
a
great thing, and great platform.
DIY content, it's amazing. Yeah, it's good because our stuff isn't. We've only got 2 songs on Spotify because I'm lazy. That is the primary reason, not any kind of moral objection rather. I just can't be annoyed to go through it all. It's a pest, but also, like, if you want to hear it, I would really appreciate it if you gave me £1.
Yeah, that would be nice. And I think because you did record it in the way that you recorded it, like with Silver Came at least, it makes sense as a sequence to me. Not just picking 1 or 2 songs. Although I must admit, there's times when I just do play Fair Annie by itself.
Well, it's quite long. You need to earmark some time in your day, get a wee cup of tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But crucially, it's under the 40-minute mark, so it fits.
That's true. The next one's going to be the same. I eventually went. My engineer eventually dragged me into a studio this week and was like, "Pal, please stop. Please just just come in and do all the vocals here. Everybody else is just like plugging straight into their Mac. Do you know what I mean? Just please come and do the vocals here." And we got to the end of it, and it was quite arduous. I was ready to kind of chuck it at least 15 times, and we went in and did it all, and we got to the end of it, and I looked at the timing, and I was like, see if this is less than 33 minutes. I'm like, I'm going to flip the table. I'm out. I'm not doing it anymore. It's going to be concise. That's your lot.
With the whole drone thing, you can just use pull stretch and just put a bunch of big long drones in the middle of the song, so it'd be fine. So.
Funny you should say that. I recorded, obviously because I didn't have anybody else with me, I recorded everything just straight to a drone. I used a click on one track, but only because I've got an actual musician, a real one that plays an instrument, who's going to put something on that track. So I recorded once I click, but everything else is just totally internal, me and a drone. And I was like, maybe we should just leave it. Just leave it like this. It's fine. It's fine. My Casio keyboard drone that I've sent you. Let's just do that. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, it would be really great. I think.
Well, Debbie, thank you so much for your time and
thanks for having me.
Sharing some thoughts with me. It's been great to talk to you.
You too. So, thanks.
I'll let you get back to your day.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
See you soon. Bye.
He